Welcome to Heroes First Podcast, sponsored by Fund the First, the nation's leading verified crowdfunding platform for first responders, military, and medical professionals. And now, your host, broadcasting from Long Island, New York, Robert Garland.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining this week's episode of Heroes First Podcast. Each week, you will hear from a new guest that portrays excellence in the first responder, military, or medical professional field. If you are an active or retired member of the service, or even a family member or a friend, then this show is for you. Our podcast is also proud partners with the Everyday Heroes Podcast Network and the Law Enforcement Today Podcast Network. I would like to now present to you our guest for episode 16 of this podcast series, Kimberly Herzog. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Great. Pleasure to have you. You look
Thank
so
you for having
excited.
me.
This is great. I know we were talking right before we got on, and don't worry, we're not going to say anything you don't want to talk about. This whole show is about you. It's all about you.
Okay.
Don't worry. So, I'm trying to think about it. I know you scheduled to be on the show months ago with me. How
Yes.
did we originally connect?
Well, there was a Fund the First auction, and I had bought I bid on some jewelry through and that's how I paid, was through Fund the First. I try to donate money to Fund the First as often as I can, and I'm a board member of Kids Backing the Blue and a committee member for Kids Backing the Badge, and I've started the National Anti-Bullying Committee. So I think through all those different connections, that's how we ended up in contact.
Right. No, it's great. I love meeting new people. I love hearing other people's stories. And I think you have a great one. And surprised, I didn't even know that you were a first responder. I mean, this is great. You have a nice first responder career as well. But before we go into that, let's talk about Kids Backing the Blue. So that's a campaign that's actually on the Fund the First platform right now.
Yes,
which
it
is incredible. And why don't you tell us about your position with Kids Backing the Blue?
I'm a board member, and the area that's under me is the anti-bullying committee. And what I did for that is started a pro board, and it's at I used pro boards, and it's anti-bullying at proboards.com. And what that is it's a board. I selected a committee of people to do this with me. I very carefully handpicked the people that I thought would be most helpful. I have an elementary school teacher, I have a middle school teacher, a high school teacher, a college professor, a college student, a mother of a child on the spectrum, and I have a background not only in EMS, but I have a degree as an elementary school teacher, and I also have a degree as a special ed teacher. And what I wanted was to put together a comprehensive group of people that could have a powerful impact and give the right feedback as to the areas that we need to address. So this board that I've created is a place for kids to come who are experiencing bullying. And what I did was I created a board with what you would call rooms. It's almost like a forum. Mm-hmm. So you have a common room where people can talk. And then I created different rooms based on bullying at school, cyberbullying, the LGBTQ community. In fact, one of my board members is a member of the LGBTQ community. Also, I did make sure that I had someone to represent that angle as well, because I thought the invaluable insight. And one of the things he already suggested was a resource room, which I'll go into. So we have these different rooms for, abuse, whether it be physical abuse, whether it be substance abuse, all different types of bullying, where you can go into these separate rooms and talk to other kids who are experiencing the same thing you're experiencing. At the same time, I think it's important to make friends, especially when you're bullying and you feel alone. So I also made a game room where you can go in and exchange your screen name on, the games the kids play, Fortnite or, Minecraft or whatever. And then they can build these friendships outside that are strictly online. There won't be any exchanging of names. Where do you live? We're very careful about that. But a screen name where you could log off and suddenly where you were sitting in your room at night and you felt completely alone, you now have a list of screen names and you could go off and log on. You have friends that you're playing with every day, which I think really can help someone who's been bullied to not feel alone. We'll also have a room for books, whether you read comic books or graphic novels or Harry Potter or whatever you like to read. There'll be a media room, which will discuss movies and TV shows that you like. So it's really a place where kids who are being bullied can come, not only for help, but to talk to other people who understand, but also to make friends.
It's great. Just not to interrupt you really quick, but what you're doing, it's actually great with COVID, because a lot of these schools, unfortunately, are closed down.
Yes.
And
yes,
because they're closed down, children need to interact. And thankfully, my kids out here on Long Island, the schools are open. But if they were closed, having a program like that, I mean, it gives that social aspect and allows for people to interact with one another. And for the kids, that's so important, especially at a young age.
So important.
Especially.
Now, where we are, it's both. My children are home, but they have been extremely social because of the online thing. And that's why we thought, let's get this room where they can exchange names. And so they come off not only feeling like I just talked to someone who understands and is going through what I'm going through and I'm not alone, but now I've made friends with them and I can go onto my gaming system and log on and meet up with them with our screen names. And now I have friends that I didn't have before. And then the main, when I talked to my community, I said, what I need from you is, one, because you're all in a unique position to see the different types of bullying that are going on, there's an admin room that only the admins can go in. And they, of course, will come on and say, I'm noticing this is going on in the schools. Maybe we need a room for this. And also, because we're all in a position of being mandated reporters, we're in a position where we can say, we're noticing a pattern of possibly suicidal ideations, and we can step in before that becomes a tragedy. The only person on the board I have two board members that aren't mandated reporters, and I have one college student and one member of the LGBTQ community who are not mandated reporters. The rest of us are, and the mother of the child on the spectrum, the rest of us are all teachers, so we're all mandated reporters, so we've got that covered. We have a lot of pamphlets and things that we can send out. So if a child comes on and says, I am having a problem with XYZ, I have pamphlets and things to send out. We have bracelets that we give out and things like that. But the other thing that we have is what's called a resource room. So if a child comes on and he's from, like you said, you're from Long Island. So let's say a child in your town came on and said they were from Long Island. Then what we would do is they could go in the resource room and it would say Long Island. And then underneath it would be an entire list of all the possible 800 numbers and resources they could possibly need for help in any situation. And then we get a child who joins from Texas. So then we put Texas and all the numbers. So that is the resource place where if you feel like you need to talk to somebody in this room, there's a whole list of resources in this resource room. And that's where we're beginning, because we're just starting this. I built this board within the last month and I got my committee in place and they're all online. So we're hoping within the next month to get it up and that's our goal this month, is to get kids on there. And that is under Kids Back in the Blue. So that's my committee position. That's my board position, is running this committee. But we all vote on everything and we do everything. And as far as Kids Back in the Blue, that's a more broad spectrum of things.
No, it's great. I mean, it's really incredible what you're doing with that to help with the anti-bullying, whether it be in school, in person, cyberbullying, and everything. It's a great resource. At the end of the show, for all of our listeners, this will be labeled inside the description of the show, so everyone could visit that website as well, and they could see everything that you're doing. I mean, this is great. So back to Kids Back in the Blue as well. I mean, it's a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization, which basically facilitates a positive relationship between future generations and law enforcement, right? So
yes.
So you're not the one that's promoting the campaign. I know, and I'll bring up the campaign for a second. Let's share the screen. So can you see the campaign?
Yes.
Okay, so right here for anyone that's viewing, we have the Kids Backing the Blue, Future is Bright fundraiser. full of $12,000, and it's at $3,200. I mean, it's been great. You guys, everyone that shares this, it's all over social media, tagging us all the time. It's really being shared a lot, but it's the support system that goes along with it, and it's nice what you guys doing. Really incredible. And I got to hand it to you guys, for really giving back to these children and providing them with something special. So Deidre Holiday, she is what
Yes,
to the
Deidre.
organization? She's the president.
No, the president is Heather.
Okay.
Deidre, what you're seeing there for the Kids Back in the Blue is that's the number of the main funding. And that does many things. For example, like right now, like these are our, I don't know if you can see this, these stickers that
Yep.
these decals or stickers that we offer. Also, we have a program that's called Ducking a Police Officer. And these are very cute. So when your child joins Kids Back in the Blue, you can ask for these little ducks. They're actually, we have 3 different kinds. We have a patrolman, and we have SWAT, and then we have officers. And when you come across a police officer, whether it be in a store or you pull up behind them or you see them just parked on the street, your children go to the officer and give them a duck and thank them for their service. Like my daughter got to do it the other day for the first time, and she was thrilled.
I like that. That's awesome. Yeah.
And he was, you could tell how touched he was, because right now, things are really hard. So to see that there's children who are handing them this duck and saying, I want you to have this, thank you for your service, is a very big deal. And I think, like you said, it's about raising this new generation of having gratitude and respect for these officers, and that's what it's all about. And we do a pen pal program. We also, we started in June of 2020. We support 90 different groups or organizations, and what we do is we also do care packages. So that main fund, there are a lot of separate funds, and what happens is if an officer is killed in the line, what we do, and this is a big part of what Deidre does, is and Diana, is we put together care packages for the family. So the wife and the children of, or husband and the children of an officer killed in the line will get an entire care package from us.
That's awesome.
With many different things in it. Sometimes it's stuffed animals. Diana owns Glimmer of Stone, which does a lot of beautiful, which I'll show you later, jewelry and clothing for Backing the Blue and Backing the Red. And, so she does do Backing the Red line also. I've gotten some gorgeous stuff from her because my husband's a fireman. So she really does gorgeous work. And we try to fill these care packages so that these people know that they're not alone and that there's a group of people. So sometimes you'll see a bunch of funds on there, and some of them are for different officers' families. So that fund was the main fund, but then you're going to see sub funds with specific officers' names on them. For example, when I do it, I just give to the general fund, and then I say, you disperse it as you see fit, because sometimes perhaps the death of one officer is a lot more publicized than the death of another officer. So he's getting all the money, and this one family isn't, and this family is. So what that fund does is then takes the money and says, okay, we need some money over here, but you can't take out, I'm putting money for the officer's family. So I give to that general fund, because then that general fund can be dispersed to officers who maybe aren't getting the publicity, if that makes sense.
No, yeah. I mean, that's, for you to give back to law enforcement community like that, and firefighters, especially line of duty deaths, it's so unfortunate when something like that happens. And again, we're seeing it way too much in today's society, way too much. But for the families, when they're going through something like that, the weight of the world is on their shoulders. But now to have someone random, like Kimberly, you and your organization, random, just here's a care package from us. Here you go. That's incredible. That lifts their spirits for that moment. That makes them feel welcome. That makes them feel wanted. That makes them feel loved. And that's what's most important for, as law enforcement myself. I would love that little duck.
We'll make sure you get one. I will make sure you get one.
Yeah, I know my kids would love doing that. They'd have a blast with that. We see, tons of cops in my neighborhood that I know out here on the island, and in the city,
Well, I
obviously.
will absolutely. Travis Mercer is the one who handles our ducks, and I will make sure that he gets with you, and you'll have the ducks. In I'll make sure that you're on the next.
No, great. Hey, can you
He
make
takes
it?
care of that, and he does a real good job. Can I make what?
Can you make a narcotics one?
You know
A
what?
narcotics
We
duck.
have SWAT. My daughter was thrilled with the SWAT one. That's the one
Yeah,
she gave out. She thought that was the coolest one. I'd have to ask if they have like undercover, but I don't know. I'm not sure how we'd make that look.
just put a beard on it. Put a beard and some tattoos, and you're good.
There you go.
Right.
I'll ask him. We'll see what we can do. I know we're right now working on getting EMS and fire ducks because we want to be able to do the same for them. So we're working on getting the fire and the EMS ducks.
Right. No, that's great. I love what you're doing with Kids Back in the Blue and everything that, obviously you have this passion in your voice and you want to help. And that's so important. And it's rare. There's not many people that want to do that.
No, there's
it,
not.
it is not. And especially, I mean, your husband's firefighter. How long has he been a firefighter for?
Let's see, 2004. So almost 20 years.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, wow. And
Yeah,
where's
he was
that?
inducted. In fact, he's in Oak Park in Illinois. In
Okay.
fact, he was inducted, or the ceremony took place right after our honeymoon. So I was a part of it. Like I pinned him and everything. And
Oh, cool.
It was nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then you yourself, you were EMT, dispatcher for a hospital. Let's hear about that. I want to hear some stories.
Okay. Well, how did it start? It started, I was actually a part-time firefighter. I went to school right out of, when I went to college, I got my degree in allied health. And then I went and sat for the state exam to be a medical assistant. And then I sort of started there was a small fire department near me, Marionette Park, and I just in Illinois, and I did that part-time. And then I was working at, I was working at a hospital downtown. And then I went and I worked full-time and I ran the first aid department of the Brookfield Zoo.
Okay.
So while everybody else was taking care of the animals, I was taking care of the people who got stung by bees or various things. So I ran that whole first aid station, and we had an ambulance, that I only had to use once. And that was, if you want to hear a story, I'll give you a story. Here's a funny story, I guess. Well, not funny, but we're near Loyola Hospital. I don't know if you've ever heard of Loyola. It's a big hospital here. And there was a gentleman apparently who was in Arizona, and he ran over a rattlesnake. And he was on his way here for a family reunion and thought, wouldn't it be cool to bring this home?
No.
So he put it in a cooler in his trunk and drove all the way back to Chicago. So he gets to his party and he brings all his cousins out of the car, wait till you see this. And he opens the cooler and he pulls this snake out, and it's not dead as he's, flinging it around. So it bit him. So of course he gets, yes. So of course he gets taken to Loyola. Well, we're Chicago. We don't have anti-venom in our hospitals because we don't have poisonous snakes here.
Right.
So fortunately, a nurse had the wherewithal to say, the zoo is right up the street. So they called and they're like, please tell us you have rattlesnake antivenom. I said, of course, we have a reptile house. They're like, we need it. So I had to run to the reptile house, get this antivenom, jump in the ambulance, and drive it to Loyola to save this guy.
Wow.
From his roadkill surprise for his cousins.
Oh my goodness.
So there's my funny EMS story.
What kind of symptoms was he having?
Just he couldn't breathe. He was turning red. I mean, he was poisoned. He was bit by a rattlesnake.
Wow.
He could have died. And
Wow.
we were not, hospitals in Chicago are not equipped for a rattlesnake bite.
Wow.
But this nurse went, oh, the zoo, they've got to have it. They have rattlesnakes, and she was right. And that's what saved the guy.
That was your calling.
Crazy. So then I went to work James with them, and I also worked in dispatch as well. I did both because they were trauma hospitals. So you had a helipad, you had emergency flights coming in, plus emergency ambulance calls because they were a trauma hospital. My husband also worked there. We worked there together. There was a good group of people, and it was really great. And at that time, we also joined IMERT, which was Illinois Medical Emergency Response Team, and that was sort of Chicago's response to 9/11, and they wanted to be for search and rescue in case of any sort of emergency. Fortunately, we never had to deal with a terrorist attack, although I have been called out to towns that were just decimated by tornadoes and digging through the rubble, hoping that you're not going to find somebody. So we did that. And then when we got married, we decided, and we wanted to have children right away. We thought the best thing would be for me to be home with the kids, and he left the trauma hospital and was hired at that fire department. So they were going to have him start as soon as we got home from the honeymoon. So as soon as we got back, he started as a firefighter, and I was working. And then we had the baby, and we decided that I would stay home with our son. And then we had our daughter after about three and a half years later. And our thought was that it's hard to work as the spouse of someone who's in fire or police because of the rotating schedule. Okay, they're on 24, off 48, on 24, off 48. Now, I've worked in various hospitals. I've worked in surgery. I worked in oncology. You can't tell a surgeon or oncologist, I'll be here Tuesday and Wednesday this week, and Thursday, Saturday next week, and then Monday, Friday. They're not going to go for that. They have a schedule, and you need to be there. So my husband and I talked about it, and I said, okay, well, perhaps I'm going to have to switch fields. So at that point, I decided at age 40 that I was going to go back to school to get 2 teaching degrees, because I wanted a degree in elementary ed, but I didn't just want the special ed certification. I wanted the full special ed degree. And so that was certainly challenging because you're sitting in a classroom with kids that are half your age. That could be your kids because I'm 40 and they're 20, and I'm like, here we go. But I pushed my way through that, and it took some extra years because I wanted the degree and not the certification. And so I came out the end of it with a degree in elementary and special ed. And then the pandemic hit.
Nice.
So my kids are at home. I am at home. My husband's still working, obviously. And, there's an insane amount of overtime because, not only are they putting extra ambulances on, but also, some paramedics and firefighters we're getting sick. Despite the precautions, you're still in the back of that little rig with someone who has it. And so there's been a lot of overtime, so it's worked out. Although I want my own classroom, and I don't, no, I did, and that's just what I'm waiting. Yes,
you'll have
I
it
will.
Soon enough, you'll have it.
I hope so.
But I mean, that's great. I mean, you took your career from being a first responder into being a first responder again as a teacher with special ed, if you think about it.
Yes, very much so.
I mean,
it helped.
Teachers, they're there when something happens in the school, so I consider them high up there on the spectrum of close to being a first responder.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely close.
It helped. It helped me to, when I had kids that were very in the extreme of special ed, my medical background was invaluable.
Right.
I knew how to talk to them. I knew how to stay calm and not panic, and keep my voice calm and my face calm and soothing, because that's what they need. They don't need you to freak out. They need you to be soothing.
Right.
And that is something I learned from EMS. If you're soothing, they are a lot calmer. And I took that into teaching.
I wish that worked with policing. When we put someone in handcuffs, if you're soothing, they get louder.
I'll bet.
The quieter you are to them, the louder they get. F you. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well,
delightful.
listen, don't worry. You're okay. And then they go crazy. But
My brother used to be a police officer. He said there were some rough times.
where did he worked in Chicago?
He worked in Glenview.
How's that area?
It's a very nice area. There's not a lot of, it's a nice suburb. However, my brother is very good at whatever he does. My youngest brother and I tease him that whenever he leaves, there's a plaque hanging with his name on it. One of those, a golden boy.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So, and my youngest brother is very successful, even more so than any of us, probably the youngest, but the middle brother is he's very good at whatever he sets his mind to. So I think he was only in uniform for a year or two, which is almost unheard of. And then he was promoted right away to plainclothes. He was a member of the gang bureau. And then he worked in one of the high schools with the kids, and he started a lot of programs for kids, for suicide, for drug abuse, for all the things that I'm doing now. He had started a lot of those groups in the high school that he was in.
That's great. Oh, great. Those are definitely needed programs, that's for sure.
Yes.
So I want to go back for a second and go back to Glimmer of Stone.
Sure.
How are you involved in Glimmer of Stone? I'm going to bring up the website. They make some pretty nice jewelry.
They do. In fact, I'm wearing some of it. Diana is on our board as well. So she really takes part in a lot of the care. She helps to put together the care packages. And I don't know, you could see all the gorgeous stuff, and there's blue and there's red. Like that one right there, I have that like in an ankle bracelet with the blue line. And we have these cuff bracelets that she made for us, which are backing the blue. And it's really pretty. And this necklace she made, which is backing the blue. And she also, I have some things here which are so great. I put this in my husband's Easter basket. And it's actually, I have it right here. And it's a keychain for him. And as you can see, she actually put his fire department on there and his last name.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Wow.
Oh no, wait, I'm sorry, that's the necklace. On here, what she put was, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. This is "Come Home Safe" with a heart.
Well, that's nice
K,
too.
And then it's got the symbol on it. This is the other necklace she made, and I think I'm going to give as a gift to my daughter because she's daddy's princess. And I have a firefighter symbol that says "wife" on it, and this is so gorgeous. And she made this, and this is just stunning. So she made the symbol, and she put the initials of his fire department and his last name on it.
That's great. And so everything's handmade. Necklace. It's all handmade.
Yes, all handmade. Wow. And it's so pretty that I thought, and I wanted to keep it, but I thought, and I love it, but my daughter she doesn't have anything like I do. And, she worries a lot. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this to her to wear. It's and in the current climate of being worried so much about fire and EMS and police, my children worry a lot. So, and my husband calls home to check in a lot and everything else, but they still, if they're talking to him and the tones go off, they hear that.
Right. No, of course.
And they know where he's going and they know why. And then they sit there and they wait. And it's, what she also does for us is she makes our shirts. So here's a shirt for Kids Backing the Blue.
Very nice.
These are the t-shirts, and the little girls are back to wearing the big hoodies like they made it up and didn't steal it from us in the 80s, right? But there it is. So she has her little oversized hoodie, also Kids Backing the Blue with the hearts in the hands. So that's hers. Nice. And my son and my daughter both have the shirts. So she really does an amazing job with jewelry and with clothing. And she'll personalize, which is really nice. My information, she will sometimes personalize to that spouse or those kids. It's really very nice. She does a beautiful job. Glimmerstone is really a great company.
I gotta ask her. I gotta see if she could make some Fun the First stuff as well. Some custom.
She does everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Like when I bid on the ankle bracelet, and it was a Fun the First. I want to say it was the auction on Fun the First. And I bid, and it was a bracelet or a necklace. And I said, can you just add an inch from the bracelet, but not to the necklace, so I could have it for an ankle bracelet because I always wear one. And she's like, absolutely. And she just totally did it. And like these, she just did these. She asked me a bunch of questions and then she sent these. So she could absolutely do Fun the First. Absolutely. She's very professional and really great, excellent work.
Yeah, and I've spoken to her a ton of times on Instagram. So I'll reach out to her. Yeah, I'll reach out to her. I'll talk to her about that. So let's see, what else? What else? You know what? Something I always ask. I ask a bunch of questions on this show, and I think you're gonna have some interesting answers. Let's see. The first thing, your career has been, as a first responder, as a firefighter spouse, and now going into the teacher field. Would you do all of this again? Would you take the same career path, or would you go a different way?
I would do the same thing. And I'll tell you that I would, because what I did before was important. I felt like I was giving back, because I was working in business when I decided to go into the medical field. So I was in finance and things of that nature. And I thought, and I remember my boss was very, very, affluent, and was literally, sending a limo for me every day, or saying I could just fly you from Chicago to Barrington from Meigs Field. I'm like, what are you, insane? And I was watching all this and I thought, I'm only helping myself and him, and I could have a gorgeous portfolio right now, but I'd be looking in a very pretty mirror, but would I like what I saw?
Right.
And so I decided to go in the medical field. One day I just said, that's it. I need to be helping people instead of figuring out how to make money from people. I was in my early 20s at the time, or mid 20s, and I said, that's it. So I started to do that. And like I said, I did the medical thing, and then actually, when I was home before I went back to teaching, I remember, and this is a fear that a lot of people in EMS, I think they can identify with. When you're a parent for the first time, you don't worry about a cold or the flu with your kids. You worry about the weird freak accidents. Those calls you went on.
Don't get me started.
Okay, so you know what I mean, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Crazy stuff comes into your head. And at that time, Noah, my son, was about 6 months old, and I was making myself crazy. But I'm one of those people where if I could laugh at myself, I can get through it. So I will make jokes just to get through it. That's my power. I'm like, I've got to be the power in these waters, whatever it takes, let's go. So at that time, the big thing with parents was the whole postpartum depression, and all the celebrities were talking about it. I don't want to hold my baby. I don't want to feed my baby. And all the moms were going, I get it. I get it. I was the polar opposite. I didn't want to put him down. I didn't want to leave the room. I thought the shower curtain was too much of a barrier. Okay. I mean, I was freaked out because you hear these things, and you pick these kids up on these calls, and it's horrible. And that's what you worry about. He had a fever. I gotcha. But what if, God forbid? Right. So I remember the doctor asked me, how's it going? And I said, well, I'm terrified, that something's going to happen. And he's like, well, do you need, anything? I'm like, no, what are you going to do for me? And then I'll never forget this. As I was leaving the office, he said, I have to ask this when someone expresses concern in an afterbirth childbirth visit. Are you suicidal? And I said, I just told you I'm afraid to leave the room. What makes you think I'm going to leave the planet?
No, yeah.
What? And so I had nothing. There was no help. There was no books, because all the books were about exactly the opposite. All the TV shows, everything was about the opposite. I had no resource or recourse for how do I get a handle on this, except to make fun of myself. So I would joke to my husband or to my best friends about, just stupid things, like I would say, inflammable pajamas. I said, but what about spontaneous combustion? Does that just trap the fire inside? And then we'd laugh and they're like, are you kidding? And I'm like, it was the only way I could get through it. Right. So my husband and my best friend said, well, since there's no book about it, why don't you write the book? So I did. Actually, before I got married, I had written a children's book, but I was afraid to send it out. I had spent a year in art school. I had it. It was ready, but it was my baby. So I kept it to myself. And then finally, when Noah was about 6 months old, I sent a letter to a publisher and I asked if they were accepting children's books. And the person who wrote back said, we're not accepting children's book at the time, and signed his name to the bottom. So I sent a letter directly to him. And I said, I also have a book that I kind of wrote, and it's a laugh at yourself nonfiction book about the fear and anxiety of being a parent for the first time, especially when you've been in the EMS field and and he's like, I want to see that. And within 2 weeks, I got a letter and an offer and a contract, and They published the book. So I did that. And so I had that for a while. And then shortly after my daughter was born, they sent me a letter saying, we're opening back up for children's books. Can we see your book? And I sent that in, and they took that one.
That's awesome.
I had that to kind of sustain me between EMS and teaching. And then after they took that book, I started school shortly thereafter. And then I just took off with the teaching. So wow. I would say that was the weird career twist, but I would say I wouldn't change it. One, because being in a classroom, I think, is where I belong right now. Two, doing what I did for the people that I did it for, especially like in oncology, I wouldn't take that back, because I really feel like I touched some people and they touched me. I worked with disabled people, and talk about being touched more than you touch them. That's, you learn so much from working with people who are developmentally or physically disabled. And in the meantime, I got to immortalize to some degree, or leave that legend of I have books out there. And, so like at Christmas, we walk in the library and how they put books up on the top, and my daughter's like, that's mommy, that's you. So I have that. So I think like that was like my, my one selfish little, I want to do that one thing, just have that one little legacy. And I did it without having to take away from being a teacher, take away from EMS, stay in finance and just build a portfolio. I did it from home when I had my babies, and now they have that. They have those books on their shelves. They see it in a store, they see it in a library, they have that. And now it's time for me to do this. There's a season, they say, for everything. So
you wouldn't change it. You'd keep it the same. That's great. No, you definitely great.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
So with that, a little bit of a different question, and then we're going to go to another different question. But
okay,
I think you'll have a good answer for this as well. What does a hero mean to you?
For me, honestly, when I think about people who are in police, fire, EMS, or military, their job, by its very definition, is to run into situations that the rest of us have been trained to run out of since we were toddlers. Since we were old enough to move, we were trained. If there's fire, if there's guns, if there's anything, you run, you duck. And these people are suiting up and running towards it while everyone else is running away. That's a hero.
Perfect.
That's the best way I could phrase it.
Perfect. So, last question before we end the show.
Okay.
It has to, the very first thing that pops into your head when I ask this question, you have to answer.
Okay.
Okay.
You're scaring me.
No, don't worry. It's not bad.
Okay.
So, if you were to have one superpower, what would it be? You had it. It popped in. Spit it out. What is it? Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Honestly, and I think this is because of EMS, and I would have answered very differently as a kid. As a kid, I would have wanted to move things around with my eyes, especially when I got mad and send stuff flying around the room, scary or something. But after being in EMS, I would say to turn back time.
Why?
To prevent tragedies, to go back and save some kids and some horrible events, if I could go back and I know they say that's a dangerous game to play, changing the course of history, but sometimes you're thinking, if I just had that split second to just, change that situation to save people, that's what I would pick, is to be able to kind of have a time control.
No,
I know that sounds odd, but that was the first thing I thought of.
It's incredibly humbling. No, it's incredibly humbling, to be honest. It really is. It really is. So, Kimberly, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And for all of our listeners, thank you so much for listening in to Heroes First Podcast. Before we conclude, I just want to make mention that there is a way to join, in an exciting way, if you want to take it that way, to join the Fund the First family. If you visit fundthefirst.com and you go on the homepage, you will see a pop-up to Republic. By clicking that, you can learn more. And we're looking for people to join our family as we grow across the entire nation to provide our first responders, military, and medical professionals with the trusted platform that they deserve. So, Kimberly, again, thank you so much for having yourself on the show. And for all of our listeners, thank you again for listening in, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was fun.
You've been listening to the Heroes First Podcast with Robert Garland. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, share, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, make sure to visit fundthefirst.com and follow us on social media at fundthefirst. See you next time.